Since I'm on Shlichus in Venice, Italy, let's talk about something everyone loves. Italian food, or better yet, Italian bread. There's focaccia, ciabatta, panettone, and of course there's pizza. Bread is a staple, so easy to make, just flour, water, yeast, salt, and sometimes olive oil. Something so simple, yet one of the most significant forms of food on the planet. Bread is a major source of sustenance. In fact, we're taught that bread represents all of our physical needs. That's why we say such a special blessing before and after we eat it. Speaking of blessings, just last week we read about the mitzvah of giving a portion of the dough as a gift, Hafreshas Gala. This special mitzvah entrusted to us is one that women all around the world do, just as they did thousands of years ago. As you may have heard, or perhaps you yourself were here in Venice, we typically have hundreds of guests for Shabbat, even up to 800 people. That's often more than 250 pounds of flour for challahs. Bread in any shape or form is a foundational part of a meal. I want to talk to you about two foundational things in life, not pizza and biscotti, but rather faith and giving. We're taught not only to give, but the mitzvah of bikurim, giving of the first fruits, teaches us to give something of sustenance, substance, and not only, but to give of our first and best. It's human nature to wonder, if we give, how will we know we'll have enough for ourselves? Especially if we give first instead of using what we need and then only after that giving what's remaining. We've all just been through a year of hardships, something the likes of which most of us have never experienced before. We faced fear of the unknown, concern of what will be, and confusion about how to move forward. But God assures us that not only will we have what we need, we'll have enough to also give to others and even to give them first. This assurance provides us an eternal teaching on how to view life. Life can be stressful. We have to work hard, work smart to maintain our own sustenance, but we must think also about others. We must help each other and give with a full heart, with the faith that God will bless us on a level such that even before we eat, we can happily give of our first portion, with gratitude, with faith, that knowing things will come our way through our action and through blessings. Interestingly, everything in our physical world has a spiritual equivalent. Even when we are involved in earthly matters, spirituality from above can infuse our physicality here below. That's why in mundane matters, we shouldn't separate ourselves from holiness and instead elevate the physicality with spirituality. But we have to be balanced. It's our nature as women and girls to be givers, to want to nourish others, but it's also important to nourish ourselves. And we should strive to fulfill our potential, but to create a protective barrier and not confuse that with having to say yes to everyone and stretching ourselves too thin. We can be prudent in our endeavors and think carefully about how we should go about our daily involvements. Let me ask you something. Did you ever wonder why God gave the Torah in the desert? The desert is basically ownerless, meaning no one can claim it as being their own. Since we know that there's nothing random in the Torah and that every phrase and even every letter is meaningful, then God's choice of this location must hold specific significance in our daily lives. God was showing us something very important. Just like no one can claim that he's the sole owner of the desert, the same holds true regarding the Torah, which belongs 100% equally to everyone. Whether one is more learned or less, more observant or less, the Torah belongs to each of us equally, and this reinforces that we should value each other equally as well. If we know more about Torah, or any subject for that matter, in business or in our personal lives than someone else, we need to stay humble and help him who may not have had the opportunity to learn as much. And if we know less than another, we don't have to feel bad or less than, because we each have the same eternal connection to the one above. We are all descendants of Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, and it's up to us to value that eternal connection and learn something new to pass down to the next generation. By the way, learning the weekly Torah portion is a great place to start. And nowadays, with everything more readily available than ever, whether you order a book and have it shipped to your house or learn directly online, every single one of us can add in our learning, even if it's just 5 minutes a day. I want you to think about something for a minute. If time wasn't a concern, what is something that you would want to study about or learn how to do? Speaking of time, there's a very interesting Torah law that relates to time, but also to having faith. It's the mitzvah of Shemitah. We can work the land for 6 years, and the 7th is a resting period for the land, like Shabbat. 6 days we work, the 7th we rest. we learn that the mitzvah is not about working and then resting, but actually that by first pausing from our activities in the mundane world and focusing on the holy aspects of our lives during a period of rest, then a blessing follows and infuses our work with abundance. And by consistently pausing from mundane needs, we strengthen our faith that all blessing comes from the one above. And the blessing is for 3 years and not just for 1 year of rest. Why 3 years? Because God's blessing will not only supply us with enough produce for the 6th year, but also for the 7th year when we don't work the land, and even for the following year when nothing will grow that year since the land will not have been worked the year prior. Our involvement in the world allows us to complete our work of avodat habirurim, refining and elevating the world around us. And every 6 days and every 6 years, there's the period of rest, which is actually the impetus that allows us to achieve an improvement in the world. This mitzvah is kept physically only in Israel, but its spiritual nature is pertinent all over the world, for you and for me. It not only keeps us from being overwhelmed by life's daily stresses, but helps us transform our lives and the world into the best they can be. Another question. Do you ever wonder how you can improve your life? Our future depends on our actions today. Here's an amazing concept. When we tap into this awareness and are mindful to sanctify ourselves even with what is permitted to us, this brings us to a higher appreciation of the things we have, that we view as ours, elevating the seemingly ordinary moments in our day to something extraordinary. Nowadays, mindfulness is a buzzword, but the Torah has been teaching this for more than 3,000 years. Physically, mindfulness has been proven to reduce stress and anxiety, lower blood pressure, and improve sleep. And it can even help you transcend the physical, making you more spiritual, more holy, connecting your essence to the divine. Connecting. You know, it's interesting. The word mitzvah is actually related to the word savsa, meaning connection. We can make all of our actions special by infusing them with holiness, making life itself more sacred and more cherished, which will ultimately improve the world around us. One simple action, one mitzvah at a time. My hope for each one of us is that we should all overcome any personal limitations, have faith in ourselves, and courage to do what we set out to do. Just remember, it all begins with you.